Kalen watched the human's hands move faster than Sylphan optics could easily track. He bypassed the safety protocols, seized the raw explosive core, and slammed his fist onto the transport console. The coordinates locked onto the Vesperkin Hive ship. Before Kalen could shout a warning, the teleporter's blinding white light consumed the boy entirely. Would you throw yourself into the heart of a swarm just to prove a point? His hands had been trembling then, 3 planetary rotations prior, white-knuckling the grip of his standard-issue kinetic rifle as the Vanguard's bridge alarm screamed their arrival, which meant the human was entirely unremarkable. Kalen, standing at the right hand of Empress Silara, recorded the physiological biometrics with absolute clinical detachment. The boy Leo Vance, his uniform declared, possessed no augmented biology. He had no aristocratic lineage. The air on the ECS Vanguard smelled of stale ozone and human fear. Yet, when the massive, organically spun vessel of the Sylphan Empire docked and Zylara projected her presence onto their bridge, she had pointed a single, slender digit directly at the lowest-ranking guard in the room. She claimed him. To the Sylphan, it was the highest imaginable honor, the taking of a lesser subject to elevate their status within the cosmic hierarchy. But Kalen noted the aggressive tightening of the human commander's jaw. They did not understand the gesture. To humanity, a claim was not an elevation, it was theft. General Varkas stepped forward, his voice vibrating with the low resonance of a predator. He offered the ultimatum: 3 trials of worth, or Terra would face immediate conquest. Kalen expected the human leaders to negotiate, to stall, or perhaps to sacrifice the boy through official channels. Instead, the boy with the rifle simply stepped forward. He agreed. Madness. They transported to the astral apex, the grand arena suspended above the Sylphan core worlds. Kalen stood in the observation gallery, his data stylus hovering over a crystalline pad. The first trial was elementary combat. 3 synthetic constructs, forged of hyperdense alloys, descended into the pale sands below. Leo Vance did not adopt a standard defensive stance. He unshouldered his rifle. Kalen frowned. The weapon was a primitive crutch, entirely inadequate for piercing construct armor, but it was all the boy had. Leo Vance grabbed the pack of explosive charges, punched the coordinates into the transport console, and activated the beam to send himself directly onto the enemy Hive ship before anyone could stop him. Down in the arena, instead of firing the rifle, the human sprinted toward a shattered pillar of obsidian left from a previous bout. He slid across the sand, kicking a cloud of abrasive silica directly into the central construct's optical sensors. Before the machine could recalibrate, the boy vaulted off the ruined pillar and drove a jagged shard of environmental debris into the construct's exposed neck joint. It was a chaotic, entirely formless display. There was no symmetry to his movements, no logic. And yet, minutes later, all 3 constructs lay deactivated in the dust. The human was panting heavily, bleeding from a superficial scrape on his shoulder, but very much alive. Kalen's stylus remained frozen in his hand. He realized then that breaking the rules was not a flaw in human design. Their unpredictability was their supreme tactical advantage. Then, the arena's ambient lighting snapped from a serene gold to a severe, violent red. A low hum vibrated through the floor plates. It was not a trial protocol. The Vesperkin swarm had just breached the outer hull. The observation gallery shattered under a barrage of organic projectiles. Kalen stumbled, his auditory receptors ringing as Vesperkin drones flooded the upper tiers in a wave of clicking limbs and acidic venom. Down on the arena floor, the Sylphan elite guard formed a pristine geometric phalanx. It was a mathematically flawless defense, honed over 1,000 years of standardized warfare. It was useless. The swarm washed over the glowing energy shields. They did not care about geometry. The rigid Sylphan formation began to buckle under the sheer weight of a chaotic, mindless mass. Armor cracked, plasma pikes misaligned. Then a blur of motion broke the crumbling line. Leo Vance did not hold his assigned position. Kalen watched the human sprint directly out of the protective bubble and into the shifting swarm. The boy tossed his standard-issue kinetic rifle away, discarding the heavy metal crutch in the dirt, and scooped up a dropped sylphan plasma blade. He did not adopt a duelist stance. He moved like fluid panic. He slid beneath a towering drone, carving upward through its unarmored thorax, and rolled through the abrasive sand before a retaliatory strike could sever his legs. He was fighting with no pattern. Kalen's internal tactical processor tried to map the human's trajectory, predicting his next strike based on optimal combat physics. The processor failed. The Vesperkan hive mind suffered the exact same inability. They could not encircle or adapt to a target that operated purely on instinct, momentum, and desperate invention. But the numbers were absolute. The massive hive ship docked above them pumped thousands more drones through the breach. Empress Asylara's voice cut through the localized comms, cold and absolute, ordering a total defensive retreat. The arena was lost. The astral apex was to be evacuated. Leo Vance ignored the monarch entirely. He saw the heavy demolition charges abandoned near the arena's transport console. Kalen watched the human's hands move with that impossible speed, locking the coordinates and triggering the beam before anyone could drag him back. The blinding white light consumed the boy, and then there was only empty space where the human had stood. Through the shattered viewport, Kalen witnessed the terrible result. Deep within the monstrous, fleshy architecture of the Hive ship, a silent star was born. The explosion tore outward, and a devastating halo of blue fire, vaporizing the vessel's central nervous system and severing the boarding tether in a single heartbeat. Deprived of their command signal, the remaining drones within the arena instantly collapsed into twitching heaps. Silence crashed heavily into the astral apex. Then an automated medical klaxon wailed. The arena's emergency recall system had engaged precisely 1 millisecond before the detonation, triggering a forced extraction. 3 cycles passed before the human finally opened his eyes. Kalen stood quietly in the corner of the sterile white medical bay. Empress Solara stood beside the diagnostic bed. She did not demand his submission this time. Instead, she offered a formal, open-handed gesture of equality, acknowledging that the boy's reckless sacrifice and formless courage had fulfilled every requirement of the trials. Terra would not be conquered. They would return to his home world, not as masters, but as allies. Leo Vance listened quietly, a fresh, raw scar pulling tightly at his temple as he nodded. Resting on the metallic table beside his recovery bed was his standard-issue kinetic rifle, retrieved from the arena floor. It was battered, emptied of ammunition, and entirely obsolete compared to the humming technology surrounding him. It was no longer a weapon of war. It was just a quiet monument to the fragile, terrified boy he had left behind in the sand. Would you leave your oldest weapon behind to embrace a completely unknown future? We will be here tomorrow with another chapter of the cosmos to explore, so make sure you return to the databanks.